Hey, what's up, Boxers? This is Zack with Buildbox. This is part 3 in the How to Build Your Own Video Game series, so let's jump back into it. Now, if we're going to have a jump limit, the other thing that we need to have is we need to be keeping track of the jump count. So we need to know how many jumps are actually happening. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another variable here. I'm just going to put in var, and I'm going to put in jump count. Perfect. Okay, and you go ahead and put a semicolon there and end that statement. So what I want to happen is if the jump count, I'll go ahead and add this if statement here, if the jump count is less than the jump limit, then let's go ahead and let's make this jump happen. Okay, so if the jump count is less than the jump limit, then do the jump. One thing I'm going to do is I'm probably going to tab all of this back over again one more time, just so it's kind of nice and neat. Do that. All right, perfect. And then we got to close. We opened up this new bracket. We got to close it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. Oops, going to go ahead and hit Control Z. And let's go ahead and hit enter here at the end so that it lowers it one line. So let's go ahead and grab it and move it back and hit enter. Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted, is I just want to add in one more line here and then close the bracket. I'm going to also spread these out a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. Let's go ahead and give it some space, give it some room. A little bit of breathing room is nice. Once we've got, there's really not much more that needs to happen with this jump count and jump limit. The only thing that needs to happen is that once the jump is completed, we need to increase the jump count so that we know that the jump count has happened. Let's go ahead and increase the jump count by 1. And so we're going to just do jump count plus plus and then semicolon. And what that does with the plus plus means is it's going to increase the amount of jump count, or increase the number of the jump count by a single number, by 1. So each time the jump is completed, it's going to increase that amount by 1. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's deal with resetting the jump. Okay. So let's go ahead and, because right now what's going to happen is we've got this jump limit set to 2, and then but once you jump twice, you're not going to be able to jump again. And let me go ahead and I'm going to hit Command S on my keyboard, so I'm going to go ahead and save. I'm going to just save this to my desktop right now. I'm going to call this geometry-example. Geometry-example. Perfect. And if you're on a PC, you want to hit Control S, and that's going to save your game. And it's always a good habit to be saving your games regularly. So let's go ahead and let's scroll down. So it looks like all my brackets are closed. Okay, that's looking good. Now I want to add in another else if statement here towards the bottom. So else if, and so basically what it's checking for is if the signal that's being functioned, if the name is enabled, then go ahead and the value is true, then which is right here. If the value is true and the name is enabled, then perform the jump. Now we're going to check to see if the name is reset. And let me go ahead and add in the reset real fast. So this is a Boolean that we're going to add. So Boolean, it means there's only 2 options, true or false. So we're going to go ahead and add in a reset. So do you want to reset this jump is basically what you're asking. Is it true that you want to reset the jump? So if the name is equals to reset, because we just made this new output called reset, or I'm sorry, we just made this new input called reset. And you can go ahead and do and the value is true. And you could do the same thing here. You could do if name equals enabled and the value is true. So basically the double and means another condition. There's another condition in this if statement that needs to happen to perform this function, to perform the next few lines of code. So let's go ahead and add in a bracket there, curly bracket. I'm going to lower it down and close it off. And then once we reset, let's go ahead and we'll set the jump count back to 0. So jump count, oops, I forgot the underscore there. before jump count on the variable. Don't forget that. Always write your variables the right way, or else code is not going to work. So jump count is equal to 0 again. So this is if it's reset. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command S again just to save real fast, because I'm going to be testing out this new preview window. Whenever you're writing a bunch of brand new code, you kind of want to save before you do it, because you never know what your code is going to do if you coded something correctly or not. So right now we're going to be able to jump twice and then not be able to jump after that. So I'm going to click once and oops. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's hit exit right now, and let's check to see what's going on here. So if it's touched, it's enabled. It's got a jump force. Okay, jump limit looks good. This is good to do a little bit of troubleshooting. Jump limit is equal to this attribute, jump limit. There's no spaces there. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this dynamic, checking whether or not the physics object is dynamic, because I don't really need that. Let's go ahead and test it out again. Okay, so it's not working. So that's not good. So if the jump count is less than the jump limit. Ah, I know what's happening. So for those of you, you might be able to guess it at this point. It's checking, it's getting to this point in the code, and it's saying, okay, let's check to see if the jump count's less than the jump limit. All right, so what is the jump count? Oh, that's right. We don't have a number for jump count yet. So we need to initialize the jump count here in the first line. When you're initializing the variable, you're first creating the variable, you want to actually initialize it and set it to 0 so that you're starting off with a jump count of 0. I bet you anything it's going to work now. So I'm going to press play, and then now we're jumping. Okay, but we're only going to be able to jump twice, and then the jump count will have increased too much, and now I'm clicking and it's not able to jump anymore. So we need to go ahead and figure out how to reset this reset function going and get that working, then get this line of code going. Let's go ahead, let's add in a action type. We're going to add in if collide, and we're going to hook this up so that if we collide with any platforms, anything that is in the collision group platform, we're going to reset the jump. So let's go ahead and we're going to make it so that the affected asset is platform. You can also set it to ground and stuff like that, but it's actually better, it's more efficient to set it to platform, because we're going to have other objects like little platforms that the character can jump on, and so we want to create a collision group instead. Let's go ahead and go back to a 3D world here. Let's take our ground, and I'm going to select it over here on the left. It's going to open up this menu over here on the right, and I'm going to take the collision group and I'm going to make it a platform. Okay, so now all the ground, wherever you see ground, it's going to be considered a platform. Once the character comes in contact with the platform, it's going to reset the jump. And so now I should be able to jump twice, once, twice, and then I should be able to hit the ground and jump 2 more times, and I can keep jumping. I can't jump more than twice, but you guys get the point. The jump limit is set to 2, and that's cool. I think the jump force is a little high, actually. I think I went a little bit overboard there. Let's go ahead and just do a jump force of 5. Let's check that. Okay, cool. That looks good. Probably a little bit higher than 5 as well. I think I kind of went the other extreme where it's too low. Next thing we need is we need a way for this character to be defeated. Okay, because we've got this character jumping and it's looking good, but we also need to make it so this character can be defeated. So we'll do that, and actually we'll do that in a little bit. The next thing I want to show you is how to make the character spin. Okay, so because this one's actually pretty easy, so I might as well just go ahead and show you this now, since we're working with the jump node and the jump code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in another attribute here, and once you work with the code a lot and you get into this routine, you'll notice there's kind of it's a really similar flow. You choose an attribute, you set some variables up, you assign them to the attribute, and then you have to do all the logic. Okay, that's the logic's really the challenging part for a lot of people. For this one, okay, since we're going to be working with angular velocity right now, and this is what's going to create the spin, we need to choose an attribute that is a vector 3D. And that's because we need to be able to put in a number for X, Y, and Z. Okay, it's going to put in a number for the force in the X direction, the Y direction, and the Z direction. And so let's go ahead and call this just angular velocity, because that's what it is. It is the angular velocity that we're affecting right now. All right, so if I have it spin, in the Y direction, it's going to spin around and spin sideways, and I don't want that. I also don't want it to spin in the X direction either. So I believe I want it to spin in the Z direction. And so what I think the way I had it set before was to -5.9 was the sweet spot for me. But it's going to be different for you depending on how big your character is. I think for this, I think -5.9 should be close. We've added in an angular velocity. We've got this attribute. Let's go ahead and add in a variable. Okay, so var. And let's do, I'm just going to call it angvel for kind of shorthand. And that's short for angular velocity. That's what angvel is. All right, now I'm going to make another copy, and then I'm going to just go one line below and paste it. And then I'm going to assign the angvel velocity, or the angvel variable, to the attribute angular velocity. So let's go ahead and put in angvel. Perfect. And then let's switch this up and put angular velocity. And one thing I notice is a lot of times I'll make like stupid little errors here, and I'll accidentally put like velocity or something like that, or I'll accidentally, mess up one wrong letter. And so one really kind of a handy thing to do is just copy and paste it in here in between these little quote signs. And so what ends up happening is when you copy and paste it, it's always an exact match, and you're gonna run into way less errors doing that. Okay, cool. So we've got angular velocity right on. There's one more thing we need to do, is we need to set when you're setting the linear velocity, let's also set the angular velocity on the jump. So I'm gonna kind of cheat here. I'm gonna just copy and paste again. I'm kind of a big fan of copying and pasting. It makes things a lot faster. And instead of setting the linear velocity, we're gonna set the angular velocity. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna put in angular velocity. And just so you know, this function right here, set angular velocity, that you can find this on the Buildbox JavaScript API. I'll go ahead and include a link to the API on all of these videos. I'll include them in the description of the videos so that you can see and you can follow along. And what this does is explains how the function works, and there's a lot of other functions on there. It's really useful. I highly recommend going through the API, checking out the different functions, and experimenting with them, and trying to make your characters, make your objects do different things. Now that we're setting the angular velocity, let's assign it to the angvel variables that we've put up here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put underscore angvel, because I'm going to use my variable here. And I'm going to do angvel X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to just, once again, I'm going to copy and paste this so it's a little bit faster. And there we go. So after this, we should see some cool spinning going on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command S on my keyboard and save again, just for good measure. You should probably do the same. If you're on a PC, you want to hit Control S. And now I'm going to click, and ooh, okay, cool. I've got a cool spin going, but it is definitely the wrong way. So I probably need to spin it in the X direction. I was wrong, okay, and I stand corrected. So let's go ahead and let's take this. I'm going to just hit Command X. I'm going to put in 0. I'm going to hold Shift Tab to go back a couple boxes. You can do tabbing to go to the right, and you can hold Shift Tab to go back, just so you know. And then I'm going to hit just Command V. I'm going to paste in that -5.9, and now I think it's going to rotate the way I want it to. Cool. Awesome. All right, cool. And you know what? Sometimes it looks like it's landing on its edge, and so let's see if it does a full flip. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it goes a little bit. It's a little bit too much. So if I do something like -5 or something, kind of shave off a little bit of the angular velocity, I think that looks a little bit better. Whoa, party. Okay, cool. It's a little bit too much of a spin. Maybe I'll do -4.9. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it at -4.9 and just kind of experiment with it now. Depending on the size of your character, that angular velocity force that you need to put in for the X direction is going to change. Don't really worry about it. Let's go ahead and refresh and let's see what that looks like. Okay. All right. Maybe 4.5. I'm getting a little bit nitpicky here. This happens a lot. Oh, well, that just was perfect. Do you see that? It landed on, it's a perfect flip. Perfect. All right, I love it. All right, Boxers, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Keep an eye out for part 4 of how to build your own video game, and I will see you in the next video.